Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Yo there, J-Man.
Hi, Chris.
Welcome to the 93rd of one of these bad mamma jammas.
Inching our way forward. In fact, probably within the next week, we may even have some plans finalized for our 100th
I
episode.
hope so.
Yeah.
We had a nice brainstorming session on our live stream last night, and we came up with a few epic ideas. Like, I was thinking, like, one of the ideas we have, if we make it in, would make it a big show.
Yeah.
And if we get all of the ideas, 100 is going to be huge.
We might have to stretch it out to 2 weeks.
We might have to, release multiple episodes in 1 week or something. But anyways, that's for the future. Stay tuned for that, because this week's episode is actually packed full of a ton of good stuff. In just a few moments, we're going to jump over to Rumor Smashing with Al, chat about the new Rhode Island and its console.
Yep.
And then later on in the episode, we've got some general Star Trek links for you, also some specific STO links, and some tweet leaks. And then the Foundry Files are back.
Because the Foundry's finally back.
Yep, so we've got a brand new segment of the Foundry Files with a new Foundry review.
And speaking of community involvement, at the end of today's episode, we do have your answers of the best newbie tips and tribal knowledge. And we're going to be sharing all that.
Some great suggestions.
Seriously.
This is going to be one heck of a show. So you know what? Before we go any further, let's jump into Rumor Smashing with Al. It's been a little while, but we're back with Rumor Smashing with Al because something new's coming to the game, and there's been a few questions, especially in our live chat room.
Many.
And Al was just great enough to stop by and say, hey, would you guys like me to come on and talk about it? And we said, yes.
So we're going to be covering some of the details of the new Rhode Island variant, specifically the console that comes with this new ship.
Yeah, welcome back to the show, Al.
Thanks. Good to be here. Glad to have me on such short notice.
Yo, dude, I appreciate it very
seriously,
much.
we were just kicking around ideas with the chat room earlier, trying to answer some of their questions, and then you were there, so we were like, do you want to call us?
So let's start. So we compiled a list of questions regarding the new Rhode Island and the console, and then we thought maybe we could just run down with you, pretty much all sourced from the chat room.
Right.
With a few of our own thrown in.
So we'll try to do this pretty rapid fire. So let's get right into it. The first one is going to be, is there a canon reference that this particular ability is based on?
No, there's no specific canon reference about this. There's Photonic Fleet already in the game where Janeway makes some fake photonic ships in one of the episodes of Voyager. I can't remember which. And so that was a reference to that. So this is, kind of similar in that you're making a photonic decoy. Specifically this, no, not specifically. We are working on other powers that are canon references that we want to get in there, including the Meson theta radiation vent from Voyager, the real photonic shockwave torpedo.
Whoa.
Oh, cool.
Remember the photonic shockwave in the game was actually based off of the photonic shockwave from Voyager, where they shoot a photon torpedo and shoot it with a phaser and it makes a photonic shockwave.
Right.
So we're working on that one as well, so you can actually just shoot a photonic shockwave at someone at range.
That sounds great.
It's going to be fun.
There's been some people in our chat room also asking if we would be getting more engineering or tactical consoles like along this line, and all those sounds like those sound like good viable.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on you look at it. We're making these consoles universal, so you can really put them wherever you want. If you're considering them tactical as far as like aggressive, there's one I'm going to say this with a huge caveat because it's really, really hard, and we're just trying to make it. I'm trying to make the photon torpedo with the gaseous anomaly sensors on it. The
thing's got to have a
tailpipe torpedo.
Yes!
So I don't know if we can pull it off, if it's even have any that much use in PvE, but we're playing around with that one. I don't see were there any other conical...
Well, a couple folks in the chat room mentioned that there was a Talaxian ship that uses a very similar ability. There was also a peak performance, the
TNG episode, season 2, episode 22,
where they blow up the Stargazer or they make it look like it, but it warps away at the last second, which is kind of a decoy thing. So some folks were wondering,
If you want to get blown up when you make the power, then sure.
Actually, that leads into my next question, is the decoy that it summons. I have some specific questions about that. Okay. First of all, I want to know, can that be destroyed?
Yes, it can be destroyed. It only lasts for a very short amount of time. So if you're
like 8 seconds, right?
Really powerful, it should be 8 seconds. It can get destroyed, and if it does, it doesn't affect your.
You remain cloaked.
Yeah, you used to remain. I don't like to use the word cloak because it's not really a cloak. It's you're masked. Let's say it masked.
Right.
Okay. Right. Because it is a I think it's equivalent to rank 3 mask energy signature.
Okay, that was another question we had, was how good is the cloak? And That's all right. I honestly, I got to say, there was a lot of people worried that this sounds like too much of an I win button because of the cloak and everything, and it is a Fed ship, and usually Feds don't have cloak.
I don't see that if you actually look at the way it works, though.
No, and also, I mean, if it's only as powerful as a Mask Energy Signature 3, a lot of you know that's not the greatest cloak in the game.
Yeah, no, if you activate that while you're too close to a player or a critter, they're just going to keep shooting you. Yeah. They're just going to pretty much ignore that. And that decoy, if it does any damage at all, it does minuscule damage. I mean,
that was one of my other questions, was does it do damage, and if so, how much?
Yeah, it has a forward and aft phaser array and a forward torpedo, and that's it. And otherwise,
just a clarifying point on that, when you say a forward and aft phaser array, you mean regardless of what weapons you have on your ship, it has phasers?
Yeah. It doesn't copy your weapons. We don't have the technology to do that. I mean, we've been asked about that for saucer separation and multi-vector assault
But
mode.
we'll be getting that tech next Tuesday, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, that'll be installed next Tuesday.
It's coming soon.
Well, is it really? Because, I mean, to me, it almost kind of makes sense that a hologram would have a limited set of tactical capabilities because it is a hologram.
Yeah, it's just fake. It's just supposed to be fake. It's just there as a decoy for a few seconds. It's like you say, it's the oh shit button just to get away. If you're in trouble, you launch it. It's only going to keep you masked for 8 seconds, and somebody could just pop their auxiliary power, might be able to see you. A lot of the questions that have come up about whether or not it's just overpowered. We released this onto Tribble, I forgot, 5 o'clock yesterday or something, and immediately the boards just lit up about it being overpowered and stuff. I said, well, maybe.
Give it a chance.
But that's why it's on Tribble. Play it and let me know what your response is.
Yeah.
So we're going to be watching that forum thread. If players are finding problems, just like any time we release a new ship, we'll tweak it. One of the suggestions came up about when you're masked, we'll drop your shield, or maybe we'll lower your power level, shield power, or weapon power. We want it to be balanced. We never want we want these consoles and these items that you get when you microtrans. We don't want them to be I win buttons, but we want them to offer something tactically interesting.
Right.
Something it's going to be different. It's not necessarily, maybe it's better in some situations, but not always. We don't want them to be I win buttons. Plus, anytime you're getting a new console, you're giving up a passive ability, right?
Right.
So people don't like giving up their passive console slots, and if you go and you slot 3 of these on your tier 5 ships, you're going to be giving up what damage or hit points or something.
You'll definitely have to make a sacrifice.
Right. Now, Al, have you guys finalized exactly how much this is going to cost in the C-Store?
Oh, that was my next question.
Yeah, I assume it's going to be about the same price as the NX or the Oberth, but I really, that has nothing, that's someone else.
That's not your
Someone
department.
else makes that decision. Marketing makes that decision.
Well, do you happen to know if it will be available via emblems in game?
We do have a plan to make sure that will always happen, and so I promise you that will happen. It may not be in the same form that you're used to right now, but there will be a way to always access microtransaction items, especially ones of this nature.
Now I
can't tell you exactly when, but
right, it might not actually be available through an alternative means at the time that it rolls out on the C-Store.
No, it won't be.
Can I butt in with a question here?
Yeah, do it.
On the pre-show on the live stream, you and I were kind of chatting about the fact that it looks like the Rhode Island that you can get has an extra buff slot versus like if you just take the regular T2 variant skin where you just have your standard T2 ship. Is that permanent? Is that finalized, or is that one of those things you guys are doing?
We're planning on making other ship variants like this, and all of them will have like this one has, I think it upgrades one of the ensign slots to a lieutenant slot. I can't remember. I didn't come prepared today, so I don't remember the details.
No, it was last minute. Yeah.
And it has an extra device slot. Console slot. I think it has an extra science console slot.
Now, there's some worry that makes it overpowered compared to other ships in the same tier. But
I can't argue that it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But that's why one of the reasons we're going to make sure that you're going to be able to get access to this by other means besides.
Well, and I think it's kind of good to keep in perspective. I mean, you're still talking about a 2-tier ship. It's not like it's an R5 ship that's overpowered or something.
Yeah, and
if you think about the other tier 5 ships that we have sold in the store, such as the Dakir or the Prometheus, I mean, you can argue that they are better than, say, a Sovereign. Right. But hopefully what we're offering you is, and we don't give you more bridge officer slots or more, we give you different configurations, but we don't give you any more powers, and we give you but we're hopefully trying to give you more tactical options. But inevitably, some people might consider certain a little bit better. Certainly the Nova, being that it has one more slot, it's an incentive to buy it. I mean, we're trying to make money to keep the game going, right? That's we're a business, and no one's going to can't make any apologies for that. But we do want to make sure that people will have access to it by other means. that will be fair for everybody. But
now, speaking of access and being fair to everybody, this might be kind of a hot button topic, but is there any plans in the immediate future to bring an equivalent to the KDF side of the game?
Yes, I can promise you that. So
really awesome.
So there's a couple different ways we're thinking about doing it. We didn't want to do it right now. This is kind of like the first, and we really released the O-Birth, and so this is a new kind of trend we're going to. We're seeing how it's working. We do want not necessarily the ship, but at least the console to be available on the KDF side, perhaps either as a separate microtrans and thus a separate way of, than an equivalent way of getting it in game, or perhaps simply by buying the ship, we'll just unlock the console as well on the KDF side.
Oh,
and
okay.
So we might do the same on the other side. For instance, we might sell a KDF ship. Maybe we might launch a new, what's Adam working on? The new flagship, right, for the
right.
KDF.
Which we're gonna be mentioning a little bit later. Also
There's very little done about that. Again, as Adam has mentioned before, it's something he's doing on his own as a side project because he's got a lot of other ships he needs to work on. But when we release that, we'll hopefully release it at the same time as the F comes out. If it has a special ability, and I don't think anything that we've released on the Klingon side that would have an ability over there, we would like to see be able to get it on the Fed side. So hopefully that'll incentivize people. Hey, I want to buy that ship. I get this little cool thing to put on my Prometheus, but now I have this really cool tier 5 ship on the Klingon side. Maybe I'll make a Klingon character and check it out. So everything I've said, by the way, this is all subject to change. I just want to let you know this is all the things that we're talking about. But the answer is, as far as your specific question, will Klingons be able to have access to this? The answer is yes.
Okay, very cool. Now, real quick, you were mentioning high-level ships, so I'm wondering, there's a couple folks, at least a couple of folks in our chat room that are huge fans of the Rhode Island. Is there any chance of bringing this costume, or actually maybe this, I'll just open up to anything, any low-level costumes that are currently available or on the C-Store? Are there any plans to make those available at Tier 5?
This is a same question that was where Chris wants to con at Tier 5 Connie, right?
Yeah. But now it's somebody else asking for a different ship, but it's the same question, Al.
That's obviously gonna keep coming up, and the short answer right now is just no.
I think that honestly, as somebody who wants the Connie, that makes sense.
It's just so weird to have a Miranda or a Nova or a Connie going up against a Negvar or a Borg cube.
Well, and it's a cute other players
it just doesn't
where
feel
you're
right
at in the game, too.
From a canon point of view.
Right, and I can look over at it. I can look over at a player's ship, and I can tell by glancing at the physical nature of their ship.
It's
where
just
they're
like
at.
in another MMO, like World of Warcraft, for example. When you glance at somebody that you see at the auction house, you can tell if they've got big sparkly effects on their shoulders that they're a high-level player.
Yeah, and so I get it. I guess if you ever had like any random things to do, it seems like a holo emitter for a few seconds would be fun or something.
It would be.
Maybe selling a Connie hologram in the GPL store.
We need more outsources for our Gold Press Latin.
So I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, we've talked to CBS about it. CBS was like, no. I mean, they weren't even crazy about the idea of putting a TOS Connie in the game as far as like how far away it is, right? They were, so it's like, but it got in, and
but you did it anyway.
Yeah,
we did it anyway.
I have one more quick question for you regarding the Rhode Island, and then we're going to let you go here. The tooltip itself for the console lists like 24 different skills that affect the console itself. Can you give us kind of a rundown on if there are any specific skills that do improve the effectiveness of this console?
Yeah, most of those are bugs, and most of those are simply because the tooltip system automatically will generate any stats that your power or the pet that is summoned power to using. So the pet has warp core engines and deflector dishes and
so it has maneuverability, so that's why it lists your ship captain skills.
Yeah, so it's just feeding that automatically in the tooltip. The only skills that actually affect that ability are anything that affects Mask Energy Signature, because it literally is a copy of Mask Energy Signature 3 that is sitting on you. And if you improve your auxiliary or whatever skills affect Mask Energy Signature, which I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, neither do I.
And so those will affect that. Those will improve your
all right.
That's
stealth.
cool. Yeah. I also just want to say as we wrap up here, just pass it along. The new Rhode Island variant's ship design is really good.
Yeah.
Really tight, very small but very detailed ship.
The ship that you guys have created in the game looks better than the one that showed up in the show.
Yeah, we actually quite literally went and looked at stills from the show, and you can see where they clay modeled over, like,
and then didn't even bother to paint it.
Yeah, like
it's a little mighty putty.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. And you're
Yeah, it's Adam Williams, our lead ship artist, and so he's made that, and all our ships. That he's basically made all the ships over the last few months and going forward. So
well, this is definitely one of my favorites.
Really great.
And this is really great job. So great work on that. Well, Al, thanks for coming on and helping us bust a few rumors.
Sure.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Glad I could help.
All right, and thanks again to Al for coming on the show. There's a ton of good information in there.
Mm-hmm. And there's more in our show notes as well, including pictures if you want to see exactly what the new Rhode Island looks like compared to a Nova. Some of the guys at Jupiter Force have put together a thread that's got the pictures next to each other.
Comparison.
It's awesome.
I love the body shots. Ba-boom. Like, here it is. Now, you want to talk about some of these Star Trek links that we've got for this episode?
Most of the news that we have to cover for this episode is not exactly STO related, but we do have some tweet leaks at the end.
Yep.
But there's tons of stuff going on in the Star Trek universe.
First of all, this is the first thing I've heard about what Cryptic's going to be doing at the Las Vegas Star Trek convention.
Yeah.
I guess there's going to be a panel with some of the guys from Cryptic on.
I'm not sure if it's just a get-together, like an unofficial thing, but it sounds like it's being formulated as like an official panel that you would see at other gaming
If nothing else, we've got a link in there because, you're going to have Gozer and Zero and Thomas and Jay.
Heinig.
Yep. So that sounds, link in that if you're lucky enough to make it to the
Vegas convention.
That reminds me, we're going to be at PAX in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
If you're going to be at PAX Prime in Seattle, you can come say hi to us. Let us know.
Absolutely let us know. We need to gauge interest to see whether or not we need to set aside some time to do a meetup. So if you're going to be there, let us know.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
leave a comment or tweet us or something. Now, speaking of Cryptic, good news. This seems to be, now we're kind of reading the tea leaves on this one, but Cryptic is hiring again.
Yeah, I think we just mentioned last episode that their now hiring page had no openings on it.
Well, and it was discussed that maybe there's something going on with a perfect world transition, and it's probably a difficult time, but the team needs resources, so only one of them specifically calls out Star Trek knowledge, but a couple of them look like they could apply to general game.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's almost 8 or 9 different openings available now. So.
And I've heard too, do you remember who was telling us at Cryptic that they have kind of like a Star Trek boot camp now for the new devs where they have Friday watch a Star Trek episode when
I have
when
heard
they
that,
can.
but I thought it was just because they're such big nerds that they like to do that.
Well, that's true. That could be that too. Another link we have in the show notes is something to help us out. If you purchase from Jupiter Broadcasting, we have an Amazon Chrome extension now. Yeah. Thanks to Austin in the IRC chat room, it's really actually pretty cool. The link's in the show notes. You click it, and then whenever you visit Amazon.com, a little URL, a little button will come up, and it just shows up only when you're on Amazon. You hit that button, and it transforms the URL into a version that gives us a percentage of your purchase.
Right. It doesn't cost you anything extra.
That's really cool.
One more quick caveat, though. It does only work with Amazon.com right now. If there's enough interest, we can beg Austin to make a new version that works with Co-UK and Canada and stuff like that.
Now, the last link I want to recommend everyone go check out is, for you Starship fans especially, is Sarah Cotta makes these amazing Starship charts. Like we've
talked about them several times on the show in the past.
And I got to be honest, I geek fap all over these things. They're beautiful. They're tons of great information and super high res.
And a new version is out.
Yep.
So updated for season 4 and slightly after. Unfortunately, there's going to be a new one very soon. He just said that he's got the stats for the Rhode Island getting ready to
But seriously,
put in there.
Go check this out. I mean, I'm sure the J-Man's probably showing you a little bit of what
I was just telling you last night that I really wish, kind of stupidly, that the ships would hold still for a little bit, that we wouldn't get new ones for a while, because I want a wall-sized poster.
I know,
of this.
right? How awesome would it be to hang that up in the studio?
I know.
It's huge. So,
but we get a new ship every week, so.
Yeah. No, but I don't want to complain about that either. So.
No, I don't.
All right, you ready, J-Man?
You do it.
Because it's time for Tweet Leaks.
Wow.
I put a lot of effort in that one.
I could tell.
I practiced in the shower. Remember I told you I had a good shower this morning? That's what I was doing.
Actually, before we get into these, I should probably mention that neither of these came from tweets. And it's just kind of, that's our segment now.
I love that.
Actually, both of these came from people screwing around in the Foundry.
Oh.
Have found some new models in there that have started to leak their way to the front. One of these is, we've got a better picture of the Borg Diamond.
Yes.
It's probably going to be the ship of the Queen in the upcoming
At least
Into
it
the
was
Hive.
in Voyager. And it looks really nice.
It does. And this new picture we've got is nice high res, really close
I like
up.
the way I think the lighting, the way the lighting where it's lit from the inside, it looks like it's glowing through the surface of the ship. Love it.
I really like it as well. Yeah. Although I have to admit that it looks a little, just slightly out of place compared to the new updated Borg graphics. Like it's a little more neon than, they took the cubes and the tactical cubes and the probes and everything, and they kind of toned it down, made them look a little darker and eviler.
My biggest problem with the Borg Diamond ship was that it wasn't solid. Like all the other Borg ships, the cubes and the spheres, they're complete. They're not. They don't have like these open spaces in them.
That's true.
That's not Cryptic's design decision. That was Star Trek.
But if you think about it, if you take a Borg diamond, diamond shape, and make it solid, then it's just a cube on its side. That's a little underwhelming.
It is too. And the thing I like about the one we see here for Stowe is it's essentially almost built around a sphere.
Yeah.
So because it's open, you can see the sphere inside.
Yeah, it's cool. I think the ship looks great, and I think you guys love that close up. Now, the other one that we've got is one that we're just starting to get some information on. We don't actually know exactly what this is, but it's a TIE ship. It's Next Wing.
Yeah.
It was listed previously as that it might have been a bug, and now it's coming out that this ship has showed up in the Foundry as being a variant of the Tier 3 Norg.
Honestly, I kind of question why this hasn't showed up in Star Trek yet. I mean, what it is it's taking the bird of prey wings, adding another set of wings with another set of guns, and more guns always
guns.
Right? More cannons just seems like the way the Klingons would go.
Right.
In fact, the fact that they haven't added more guns by now? I mean, come on, guys. That might explain a few things, so I'm just saying.
You go off and add lizard people, but not more guns.
Yeah. You got to get your lizard people adding more guns to your ships. That's why you have lizard people.
Right.
Absolutely. So those links are all in the show notes, as well as everything else we talked about in this episode. Is there anything else you want to cover in the news segment, J-Man?
No.
All right, then you know what it is. It's Foundry Files time. Welcome to the Foundry Files. Now, if you are new to the Foundry Files, which you probably should be since we've only done one before, the Foundry Files is where we have assembled an ultimate panel in Jupiter Force, and they review these Foundry missions like only they could because you have Foundry authors
It's
in there.
extremely in-depth, these reviews
Foundry
that
experts.
are offered.
It's amazing, and the details are just, you just get a glimpse of the details in the show. The real meat's going to be in the show notes. But why don't I tell you what we're going to talk about today?
Sure.
We're gonna review First Cause, Then Effect.
Now, this is a Federation mission. We will be doing Klingon missions. We're even going to be doing some foreign language missions on future versions of the Foundry Files, just to kind of open your minds.
Now, here's a little raw data about this episode. It's had, at least at the time of this recording, it's had 3,749 playthroughs. It has an average rating of 4.26 stars.
It's pretty darn good.
And it's been updated once or twice. It's at least at version 1.2 now. But just as a note as we move forward too, this is really meant as a solo gameplay episode.
Yes, it is.
But why don't we bring the Foundry guys on?
Real quick before we do, I should mention also that we have the author himself, Rogue Enterprises, in our chat room right now. So
Isn't that
if
awesome?
we say anything horrible, he's probably going to rage quit. So that'll be fun to get live on the show.
But all right, let's bring on the Foundry Files author guys here. And hey guys, first of all, welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Hey.
And I wanted before we roll, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of props because I know that this was kind of like a last minute deal because the Foundry just came online and all that kind of stuff. But we've been wanting to do this so hard for a while now that you guys really came through on this, so we really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Now, with that said, why don't we jump into First Cause, Then Effect? Who wants to start off?
Yeah, okay.
No pressure.
No pressure. First Cause and Effect. A story that you basically are called to investigate the USS Triumph for a missing Federation Council member. Starfleet dispatches you to check the last known whereabouts. And it's close to the neutral zone. It's like, but yet far away so that, you can be like close to get reinforcements or, it's just, the story makes a lot of sense where the positions at.
So you kind of in your mind, it's like a logical. This seems like this would be where this event would take place, kind of a thing.
Well, and if you don't mind me sidetracking for a sec, I did get the chance to play this one. Thank God, it was actually quite good, and I can tell you more about it as we go along. But it's a really nice setup because you are checking out. There was a diplomat sent to Klingon space on a diplomatic mission.
I'm sure that went fine.
Went missing on the way back.
What?
So you can't blame the Klingons really because she got out of Klingon space
got
safely.
there,
So it's a mystery.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then when you go into the system, you're stuck. You investigate. You're not quite sure exactly where the ship is when you first get into the system. You have to investigate. There's like nice effects and things like the derelict ships and then the anomalies in the background. It was really nice.
The environment.
The environment was good. So basically, you beam over the ship, and then you help, with the problems and things. You talk to the captain, and you have to do some investigations. Then you beam back over, and then you go and you investigate an anomaly, and you find out, and Klingons, warp in. Then you have to go to defend the SS Triumph.
Up to this point, it seems really straightforward, but this is where things start to go a little off the beaten path.
Exactly. And when you defeat the Klingons, well, you don't really get to defeat, because the time that there's like, I would say like good 14, maybe 15 Klingon ships pounding on you. And so you blow up. If you ever seen a TNG episode, Cause and Effect, you realize that when they blow up, they restarted the whole time over.
Causality.
I love that episode.
Which is really, I should just let everybody know that's what this whole mission is a tribute to.
Well, that sells it for me right there.
Right. I mean, the name of the TNG episode was Cause and Effect. This one's called First Cause, Then Effect.
What differs is that this time you remember almost exactly what happened before. So when you go back in, you're like, okay, something's not right here. So you know you're stuck in the loop. So you beam back over. If you do, it's like, wait a minute, these seem sort of familiar. So you go through again, and you say maybe it's just a one-time thing, and you do it. You go back, you scan the anomaly again, and then you get blown up by the Klingons, and you go back for a third time, and then you're like, wait, there's something wrong here. So they do things different. This time they look for clues, and you have to do a little investigation. You have to interview a few people. It gets a lot more. I don't want to give too much away, but it was really, I liked it. At the end...
But on a whole, I mean, since we're talking about the story, though, you think it holds up? Like, on a whole, it wraps up everything. It doesn't leave too many loose ends or anything like that?
No, it doesn't. I really did like the story. The story was pretty good.
And it fits within the STO universe well? It's not like the author didn't have to shoehorn anything in to make it...
No, you know what? I say it does fit well in the STO universe. I do like at the end, though, that everything points to one way, and at the end you're like, wait, it's this? I do like that. It was definitely, at the end, you're like, okay, I was expecting this, but it turned out to be this. I really like that.
A nice twist.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And character-driven, which I guess is what we're going to be talking about next. Who wants to take the forefront here on talking about some of the individual characters involved in the story?
Uwe, do you want to take that one?
Yep, that's me.
All right.
The first thing to know about these characters is development, or thereby lack of. Throughout the entire mission, these characters are here, you talk to them, however, they develop very little.
Now, what you mean by development, if I can just clarify, is that the characters that you meet, they don't all of a sudden reveal secrets, well, save for maybe one that's the big twist at the end of the mission, but they're pretty much almost like two-dimensional characters.
Yeah.
As you meet them is as they are.
Yeah. Well, another interesting note is that not like only one or two of the characters you talk to regularly, you interact with regularly. One of the probably the only primary character that you interact with the most is the captain of the Triumph,
right?
Because she is the first person you meet upon approaching the ship, and as you beam aboard, you are still talking to her quite regularly, and as the loops go on, you are still even more talking to her more than any of the others. And that also puts her into a position during the investigation where suspicions could be kind of shroud her a bit, because
I like that.
Because she's getting close to you. That puts her into a position where you might start thinking, is she trying to unthread herself from all of this, get her out of the way so you can focus on somebody else and make them the suspect.
I should probably actually mention that. I don't think that we covered that in the story section, but there is a bit of a mystery going on here where by the time you're into the third causality loop, you have to figure out how to get yourself out of it.
I like a mystery.
And one of those is figuring out who is the cause of the events
that
are causing the
causality. To get out.
Yeah. And Uwe is exactly correct, because you have so much interaction with the captain. Your personal bias can go one way or the other. You can think that she's trying to engender herself with you and take herself out of the equation because she is the primary suspect, or that the author was trying to take her out because she's not supposed to be a suspect.
Why don't we jump over to Irish, because Uwe's video is frozen up there, and he kind of just has a face that he probably doesn't want up on the screen for too long. Irish, do you want to talk us a little bit about the technical side of this mission?
Yeah,
Talk
sure.
to us about that, sir.
One of the key things with the technical thing here is, because, as they've already hit on there, because you're dealing with a situation of a time loop, you don't really have a lot for your characters to do other than present themselves and then kind of play out their pieces, and then just different variations as each time you go through the loop. From the technical side of things, how that's done is the authors used pretty much two maps over and over again. Every time you go through a loop, there's a change in the environment around it. So, for example, the anomaly that's included in the space map, it changes each time you go through it, so you got a visual cue. One of the things with that visual cue that kind of got on my nerves a little bit as well at times is there's an audio bit for the beacon that's used, and if you've got the ambient sound up, it will just bug the hell out of you.
Yeah.
But it's a small complaint considering the effect is actually quite well achieved.
The visual effect of those beacons is it works really well. So it's a shame that they couldn't detach the audio from them.
Yeah, again, that's a limitation of the Foundry asset. That's not really anything the author can control.
Exactly. Now, you did mention just a minute ago that the author reused the same couple maps over and over. Were you saying that as a good point or a bad point because
if I was looking at a mission where it doesn't need that, like, for example, if you're dealing with a situation whereby you should have a nice linear progression and you should have multiple maps, then reusing the same maps could be awkward. But this mission calls for that. You need to go back and see the same space zone, and you need to visit that ship more than once. So the fact that they can make it slightly different each time, that's good work from the author.
Now, on the technical side, was there any situations where like there was a potential deal breaker for the mission where you would have gotten any potential technical hangups?
Yeah, I kind of got a little, I don't know how to say, a little hung up on this one. There's a very interesting, and I call it experimental game mechanic that he's tried to use here. At the point where you get swarmed by the Klingons, the whole purpose of that combat is to kill you, to make you respawn at a designated respawn point, which I reckon he's wrapped in a reach marker, so that would trigger the next part of the mission.
Right.
Now, I went in the first time and attacked, so the first thing that got on my nerves was there was a group of bird of prey spawned behind me, so not great for attack. And it's pretty squishy anyway, so
I had
that
the
didn't
same
help.
issue. I played this on my escort, and I couldn't, besides having them spawn right on top of you and just being annoying, that area is also fenced in by invisible walls, so I couldn't get distance to do a run-up on him either. So
yeah, I ran into that.
But once I realized what was going on with the mechanics, it made certain amount of sense. It was just that initial impression of running into those particular mechanics of things spawning right on top of you and not being able to get away was frustrating.
Yeah, that is difficult. What do you do how do you get around that?
You die. You're supposed to.
And then, that's what you mean by forced. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a forced encounter like that.
All right. Now, why don't we jump over to Bridger, because I want to talk about the touchstoning of this episode, because I know, Bridger, you always like to mention how this sort of played into other Star Trek canon.
Actually, before we move on real quick, we will get to that in just a sec, but on the combat, if you end up defeating, you can defeat all of those birds of prey that come out and are supposed to kill you, and you'll get stuck in the mission. So if you guys are playing through this mission, don't worry about the swarms of Klingons. Let them kill you.
Just die.
Just let it happen.
Let it happen.
Just bend over and take it.
All right, so why don't we jump over to Bridger. Bridger, tell us how this touchstones on some of the previous or other established Star Trek canon, things like that.
Yeah, you have the temporal anomaly from Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Cause and Effect. The initial point where you get in the loop is the same like in the episode, so you have to die for it, like the Enterprise D.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is it clear, though?
It's not the first time.
Okay, so that's where the hang-up is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's a little bit...
The only hint that they give you that's what's going on is it says defend the SS Triumph till the end. The end is coming, but it doesn't actually tell you what's going on.
I might have missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when it happens the first time for me, and I respond, and I got the text, we're warping out somewhere, I was a little bit unsure what's happening now, but then I completely understand it, so...
Right, yeah, now it kind of clicks now that you kind of explain it.
Yeah, exactly. But that are the Foundry limitations at the moment, so that's the best he couldn't do it in a different way.
I think that's a good summary for a lot of the stuff that goes on in this mission, is that I think that all of us agree, right, that this is just it's a really great story, well-written mission. The characters are decent, but they're kind of two-dimensional, but they kind of have to be because of the situation. And the environments are pretty darn good as well. But what it all comes down to is that the author is working within a very specific set of limitations that they've had to come up with ingenious solutions to overcome.
And do they come across as ingenious? Like, do you enjoy the solution?
After I've experienced it.
After you understand it?
Yeah. And do you guys feel the same way, that some of it might have been frustrating the first time around, but after you look back on it, that it turned out to be an experience that you can enjoy in retrospect?
I would agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Now,
For me,
let's go...
The big thing was...
Go ahead, Irish.
I was just going to say, the big thing for me was that as soon as it happened and I moved to the next part of the mission, the first thing that came into my head was, okay, how the hell did he do that? And then how do I unravel the technical part of it?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's great. It's great doing a mission that is by an author that clearly knows the tool well enough.
Yeah.
It would be easy enough for this guy to write a half-assed mission, but you really can't get around the fact that he knows how to use the tool.
He must have had other previous missions or experimented or something along those lines.
Something.
Yeah.
Actually, to be honest, just knowing because I've made my own Foundry mission, this looks like a mission that kind of grew as he went along. Like he had a rough outline of what he wanted to happen, but so many little points in the story had to be tailored to the Foundry's limitations. And so...
How true is that, though, of the actual Star Trek TV series? I mean, very true, right?
So budget limitations and time scales and everything.
So heck, you look at, what was it? They didn't even have any new exterior shots in Season 3 for the original series. I mean, talk about that. They couldn't even do any new space shots.
Right.
They had to reuse everything. Now, that's a serious limitation.
Yeah.
So very, very cool. Guys, do you have any final thoughts on the story or anything?
What if we go
that?
back through, let's just give real quick the rundown of the scores of each one of these.
Oh, yeah. You guys need to mention your scores.
Sections.
What'd you think?
All right. So... For the story, the score was a 6.83.
Now, again, all of these are out of 10, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Do any of you guys have the characters? Somebody erased that.
Oh, no. What are the characters?
No, it's not erased. Yeah, it's part of the story section, so character rolls up into story.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
My bad. All right. The technical side scored at a perfect 7.
Okay.
.00. The gameplay section scored it at a 7.40, and one thing I want to bring up about the gameplay section, because we didn't really get to that, was that this mission has some ground combat and space combat, but it is really a heavy story mission, but the player has the option that they don't have to read most of the dialogue. Most of it is optional dialogue.
Oh, really? Yeah. Now, do you guys, would you recommend reading it, though?
Yes, of course.
I would. I'm the person that loves the story, and I read all the optional dialogue.
What about you?
There was a point where I got a little tired of talking to the captain in particular and just kind of effed my way through it.
Yeah, effed my way through it. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. But when it got back to when I had to go talk to the ambassador and the engineer, I paid more attention to that.
Okay, so you were kind of able to discern.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's probably what I would do too.
Right.
All right, continue on, sir. Was there any other?
Yep, and overall this mission got a 7.06.
Not bad, right?
That's really not bad.
A good mission.
Yeah, it's above average.
And just because I loved the episode Cause and Effect, it's one of my favorite episodes from TNG, I really enjoyed this mission. So if you love time travel, if that's a episode that holds dear to your heart, this mission is for you. It's great.
I would really recommend this to anybody, to be honest. This is a high-class mission. I personally gave it a 4-star. I only knocked it down because of the initial frustration of those invisible walls. My only recommendation on a technical side would be to expand those invisible walls a bit. I know that they're there to keep you from incorrectly triggering the warp.
But for you want to do a complete
for anybody in an escort, you need some maneuverability space.
Yeah.
So that would be my only technical recommendation. The writing was great. No major spelling, no flaws that I could find at all on the spelling or grammar. The environments, while a little bland, I was surprised to see, at one point you have to go off and find the personal quarters. And knowing which map they used, I was kind of blown away with the fact that they managed to squeeze these personal quarters into this little tiny space.
Oh, so they made custom rooms?
Yeah.
Okay. Or he.
The whole thing is really well done.
It's one person.
Right.
Well, guys, is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap up the Foundry Files?
Yeah, there was one thing I wanted to mention because it's something that doesn't get an awful lot of notice from players that haven't tried to make a Foundry mission. There's a piece in this, I'm not going to give away the actual twist that's going on, but there's an NPC that's working on a wall console. Mm-hmm. Then you have 2 security guys come in to interact. Now, the animation on the NPC is not going to change. That's just a limitation you have.
Right.
But it gets explained in the dialogue that this guy is so panicky in terms of what he's doing that he just won't break away from the console.
Which is exactly what I was kind of referring to earlier, is that this author understands the limitations of the tools that they're working with.
And worked it in. Now, what were you going to close with?
I was going to touch back on all of the optional dialogue. Some of those optional dialogue options are really, so for only a couple of the characters, that's really all they get to say. So if you don't interact with them and don't read it, you get no interaction with that character at all.
Right. Okay. So it's kind of up to the individual player to experience everything that the author put in there. Although it's also kind of a nice touch that the author makes it optional.
Yeah, I think
some people don't want to have to bother with the helmsman. Although, honestly, at that point, you're starting to investigate. And so you're probably going to want to talk to everybody anyway.
Yeah, because you're trying to get all the clues.
And the only way you'd really know who you don't need to interact with is if you've already played the mission or somebody already told you the answer.
Right.
Which we're not doing. No. We have not done that.
All right, guys, I'm wrapping this up. Was there anything else you want to touch on before we go?
Yes, we want to plug our official review and email address. So
Oh, yeah.
Irish, I'll let you do the official review, and I'll do the email address.
How exciting! This is neat. All right, guys, lay it on us.
What we've got is everything you're hearing on the show here is just a very trimmed down version of what's in the actual document. The document's going to be available in the show notes. I believe it's in Dropbox link. Mm-hmm. And there's a few links in the actual show note doc we have here as well for people who want to learn better how to use the Foundry. The best resource I found was Starbase UGC.
Yeah, of course.
You've got a bunch of tutorials over there. I've got the links to those, and I think there's even a review for this mission that was done maybe a month or so ago over there.
Cool.
So all those links are in the notes.
Awesome.
And now that the Foundry's back up, everybody can start playing with it once again and making their own missions, and you might have your mission brought up to us. Mm-hmm. And if you play a really good Foundry mission and want to let us know, please email us at foundryfiles@jupiterforce.net, and you can leave us comments, mission suggestions, and we'll check them out.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on, and thanks for doing another episode of the Foundry Files.
Right.
Among the ground, they would be very expected. Yeah, I think that's important.
And it is time for community feedback. Now, last week, we asked you for things like tribal knowledge or newbie tips, things like that for the game.
Mm-hmm. Basically stuff that's not currently covered well in the game. No.
But wouldn't it be great if some of these things made it into a future tutorial revamp?
Whoa, you think?
Wouldn't that be great?
Yes, it would.
Now, again, I know we say this every time, but you guys, it is so true. Thank you, everyone who left a comment on last week's show notes. Go over and look for STOked 92 to read the whole feedback thread. It's awesome. But we've picked out a few of our favorites we wanted to cover in this episode.
Yep.
You want to start with the first one there, J-Man?
Absolutely. Bob Does the Job wrote that if you could, how you disable your kit visuals is not something that's ever told to anybody.
Yeah,
same thing with armor as well.
In his comment, he was like, my first time in where I really got behind like just making this awesome looking character, this awesome looking tune, and got my uniform all dialed in. I put on my kit, and it was all kind of blown to heck.
Mm-hmm. And that the armor that you start with as well starts off. I don't like the metal pajamas that they give you for armor.
He mentioned that he actually played for a couple of weeks running around and then went to go unquip it or dequip it and noticed he right-clicked on it by accident and saw the disabled visuals.
Yeah.
So that is a nice, helpful little tip. I don't know how you'd work that in, but it's a good one. I also really like the one that Havash wrote in because it's so close to what I always say. Mission replay and other things are like functionality for ship interior. You'd never know. If you got into STO tomorrow and you'd never seen anything else, you could go maybe visit the bridge. You'd probably check that out, but you'd have no idea what you could do there.
Nothing in the game currently points you out on how to do that. It's just something that if you happen to be clicking buttons, you can see that you can do it.
And I could definitely see visiting your bridge worked into a tutorial.
Yep.
I could see that. Now, the next one here was written...
before we move on from ship interiors, remember that they just recently put in the option for you to launch a shuttle from your ship interior.
Oh, that is, yeah.
And then you can change your actual ship from your shuttle interior.
That's also...
And none of that functionality is explained anywhere in the game.
I didn't even think of it.
Yeah.
Because it's so new, it just doesn't even register.
Right.
Yeah. I need something kind of to expose me to it so that way it sticks.
Exactly.
This next one from Og, you want to read Og of Skish?
Sure. When you run a scan, by pressing the V key.
There's a lot of people that play the game that don't know that pressing V can be very helpful.
Yeah, and some people actually have, we had one person comment that he didn't notice at first that when you press V, he thought it was just giving you an anomaly count. But then he noticed that there's a graphical pointer in the game of where the cone of scanning points
that never threw me.
No. Well, if you remember when the game first launched, they didn't have that.
Yes.
It came later.
Yeah, I do remember. And it is, he said in his comment, you can go read it for yourself, in there he mentioned that he played for a little while before, and he said it was immensely helpful once he found out that tip.
It really is a helpful one.
Now, we have a rapid fire one we'll get to here in a sec, but before we get to that, I thought I'd mention one that Playful Dreamer wrote in with. He says...
this is very much a newbie tip. This is something that a lot of new players especially don't get exposed to because you're not during the tutorial. It's the fact that you have to get to level 11 to rank up.
This throws so many people. You have to spend those skill points.
Yeah.
And then you'll get the congratulations from Mr. Spock.
Right.
And in fact, just from the level we're exposed to for new players into the game, we see that come up all the time.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot different than every other MMO on the market.
And it's a very meta issue for the tutorial to deal with because the tutorial is very grounded in the world of the game.
Yep.
And how do you work in this managing your skill points in that? Because It's not...
Well, to be fair, you remember you start the tutorial as an ensign, and then by the time you're done, you have enough skill points to become a lieutenant. So if they did incorporate this into the tutorial somewhere, there's a chance, there's an opportunity there to clarify that situation.
Now,
I just don't think it's currently done very well.
It's solved via like NPC dialogue right now, if I remember.
Yeah, but I think it's an optional thing that you get from somebody at our space dock or Kronos.
You are right. Now, should we just kind of throw a couple of these
around?
Yeah,
this last one, I just want to say special thanks to this dude, Hatchery. Had so many great suggestions.
He just nailed so many newbie things that you just don't even think about. Stuff that when you've played
you take
the game,
for granted.
You've played it, even for a little while you take it for granted.
Right.
I'll read a couple of them here.
Sure.
He says there's actually an auto-fire option.
Yes.
Did you know? A little right-click and you can auto-fire.
In space and ground, although I think ground is broken.
I'll read the next couple and I'll let you grab some. You can buy schematics for crafting. Mm-hmm. And again, that's NPC dialogue, but it's buried. Mm-hmm. You can replay missions and get your gear that maybe you're missing. It's like you played part of the Breen series and you want to get all of the stuff from that. Mission replays.
A side note to this is that let's say you start playing the Breen series at Lieutenant and then you get distracted and go back and go off and do something else. You come back at Captain and finish the Breen series. Well, now you have two separate sets of that Breen gear and they don't work together because they're different ranks.
Right.
But a lot of people don't realize you can replay the ones that you did at Lieutenant to get Captain versions of that same scalable reward. Mm-hmm. So you can trash your old Lieutenant crap. You don't have to keep it around. You can get new scaled up mission rewards from anything that has scalable rewards.
Yep, like all the new stuff really does. You want to read a couple of them?
Yeah. When you accept a map transition to a teammate's bridge, it will put you alone in their bridge with your boffs. It's a bug.
Yeah, it's like a one-off instance or something.
The reason this is included is because it's something that everybody runs into and everybody gets confused by, but it's not listed as like a known issue anywhere. So again, it all goes back to the functionality of your ship interiors.
That's a very tribal knowledge thing. That's a perfect example of tribal knowledge. Mm-hmm. A couple that I thought maybe I'd mention. He also said, "Did you know you can breed tribbles?" But
there's a whole episode of Stoked about that, guys.
Yeah, there is. There's a math on it. It's good too. This one I've never done, but of course, it just makes sense. You know, high-end skills can be trained to your boss from other players.
Yep.
I've never done that.
No, I've never found the need as of yet.
I think that's what it is.
I actually have trained somebody else's boff, though, once, because I'm just that skilled.
Nice, man.
Right.
He also mentions in here that you can get you can win the Batleth contest.
On Forcus 3.
Yeah. And
that's one of the Klingon PvE missions.
And I just love this last one because it's it's due diligence for yourself. Mm-hmm. That way you don't get surprised by maybe a slipped-in nerf or something like that. Read the release notes when patches come out.
Yeah.
And we generally always link them in the show notes, too, so you can always go find them there.
It's a great source of tribal knowledge.
Well, and it's a great source of keeping an eye on things that might be changing from underneath your feet. You go in playing, and you learn the game one way, and then they make adjustments as they need to improve the game, and sometimes some big stuff can change. You know, I remember there was some of my science abilities that kind of got a nerfing or got a tweaking.
Come on, we keep coming back to this point, but ship interiors have been in the game for quite a long time now. There's still very little functionality, but there's also nothing in game that points you to it.
And
if you didn't read the patch notes when they came out,
you'd find out by release notes, but you're not going to find out in game,
right?
Or by watching Stoked, which you can do every Tuesday over at JupiterBroadcasting.com or live at jblive.tv at 11 a.m. on Saturday, right? And I just wanted to mention, if you have enjoyed some of the content here from Jupiter Broadcasting, please visit jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate and consider donating a little something. If you haven't enjoyed it, well, leave us a comment because we'd like to know why so we can make it better.
Yeah, so we can make you go donate.
Yeah. Nice. So, and basically what all works out. Sure. So again, links to everything we've talked about in the show notes, and of course all the different various video format versions, including a new fancy HTML5 video player.
Which takes forever to encode. We're doing this for you guys.
We heart you guys.
Now, we don't have a new community feedback question for you this episode, but I do have a feedback request. Like we said earlier, and I'll just restate this, we are going to be at PAX this year. And if anybody out there watching the show is planning to be in attendance at PAX and wants to get together for lunch or something.
PAX shout out, let us know.
Let us know, because we currently haven't planned any sort of a meetup, but if there's enough interest out there, we will definitely.
Around. We know at least a couple of people are going to be there, but if you're going to be there, probably Twitter would probably be a good way to let us know. How about twitter.com/JBJeremy?
That's me, JB Jeremy.
And I'm Chris LAS, but probably let Jeremy know because he's really got all of PAX in his head right now.
I do.
You're kind of like,
oh my goodness, I've already set up my panel schedule.
You're the PAX man.
I am.
You got a doc going.
PAX man.
So if you're going to be there, and you're going to be PAX manning with us, let us know so maybe we can do that. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Stoked, and we'll see you next week. Cool. All right, here we go. It is community feedback.
I didn't have a mic, and you were just gonna go. And
you'd have it.
It was over there then.
I had faith.
And you said, "Here we go." And
Faith in the J-Man.
Fart now. Get it out of the way. Weird. I'm ready, Chris. No, but I'm ready. I'm ready, though. I'm not ready. Hold on.
I'm done.